Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I'll be talking to former students who will tell their story of their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap into the journeys that my former students have taken. Also, for them to share their experiences with my current students, and for that matter, anyone else who is interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. So let's welcome my guest, Serena Combs. How you doing today, Serena?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I'm just so over the moon that you have taken the time to come and talk to me about your life's journey on this podcast.
Yes, well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I would like you to take about 3 to 5 minutes to briefly introduce yourself. Please include when you left the Don, and where you went to high school, then college, post-college, and what you are currently doing now. So please take a moment and talk about yourself.
So I went to Don Estridge from 2010 to 2013, which is so long ago. I can't even believe it. Spent 3 years there, obviously, and then I went to Park Vista Community High School, which is in Lake Worth. And I graduated there in 2017. And from there, I had to kind of make a decision about college, what I wanted to do. And something that really interested me was wanting to play collegiate golf. So I took a lot of time kind of looking at different schools, looking at not only the academic side, but also the golf side. So I, went on several tours and ultimately decided to go to a really small school in South Carolina called Presbyterian College. It's the smallest Division I school in the nation. So there's about, I'd say now probably less than 1,000 students.
Wow. I didn't realize it was
crazy.
that small. That's tiny.
It is so tiny. So I was kind of nervous to go there just because of how small it was. I mean, Park Vista has, I don't even know, 3,000 students.
At least.
So now I'm going somewhere.
Yeah, that's a high school
1,000.
compared to a Division I college.
Yes. So it was crazy. So I loved it, though. I loved every single second of it. It was the best decision by far that I have ever made.
So you played golf all 4 years?
I played golf all 4 years, yes. Had the chance to go back for a 5th year, but decided not to because of my COVID year. But I joined, so it's called like the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. I joined that. There's 2 athletes from every single team on this committee. Every NCAA school has one. I was in that for a year and became vice president, and then became president the last 2 years.
Wow, impressive.
And then my very last year, my senior year, I was actually, I guess it's called co-chair of the Big South National SAC, so of our conference.
Wow, and how many schools does that entail?
I think now 12 schools in the Big South.
That's a lot to be in charge of. That's incredible.
Yeah, so that was a great experience.
A little birdie named your sister told me you got nominated for something. What was that something you were nominated for?
Yes, I was nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year.
Wow. NCAA, like the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You just impressed beyond impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. But it was through the SAC that so they have annual meetings. And so I went to this annual meeting, and basically there's 2 people from each school. We all sit down and we look at proposed NCAA legislation. And we say, we look at it and we say, how does this impact student athletes? How would this impact the college itself, the conference? We just we go on for hours just on.
Wow, so you're really a part of this whole thing.
Absolutely, yes.
Wow, so it's not like I got roped into, when I was in graduate school, I got roped into student government, and no offense to it, but it was kind of a joke. Maybe it was just at my school, like they were trying to put up a radio tower. We spent all this time arguing. Oh, no, not put up a radio tower. They wanted to expand the radio itself because the broadcast wasn't reaching all the students. And we spent hours and hours and hours arguing this. And finally I turned to somebody and I said, wait, they just said that they have to submit it to the president of the college. And if he says no, we just wasted 3 hours of our time. And they said, yes, pretty much. And I was like, wah, wah, wah. Why am I doing this? Like, I don't understand. But you are really making a difference. This really turned into something. Like what you guys said and did became reality, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so even just looking at it, so that's what conference perspective. So like even looking at a PC perspective, when I was just a member and, vice president on SAC, we went to meetings once a month and we didn't really, honestly, they were maybe 30 minutes long. We didn't really do much.
Gotcha.
And so when I became president, one of the biggest things that I had to deal with, playing golf, we have tournaments, 5 tournaments each semester, Monday and Tuesday. So missing class. And there's a lot of professors that aren't very nice about you.
The student athletes. No, they are not.
Yes. So, they would, it was just crazy because I'm not, I don't, it's not like I'm just skipping your class. I have a legitimate reason.
Right. I'm actually doing it for the school.
Right. I get a scholarship to go play golf. That's what I'm doing. And so I would get a hard time about that. So I actually worked with our provost and our faculty athletic rep on changing our attendance policy for the school.
Wow. That's
awesome.
That's
just like little things like that can really, make a difference.
Wow. Now, what is since you're heavily involved in that, what was your opinion of the student athlete getting paid? How do you see that?
Yes. Let's see. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw a question out there that you might have not been prepared for.
No, it's fine. I just have differing opinions because I see all sides, to be honest.
Okay, but I want to know your side because your side is the reality side. Because I don't know any other Division I student athlete, so I can't ask them. So I'm asking you because you're my resident expert because you lived this for 4 years. And there's no wrong opinion. It's an opinion, and I value anyone's opinion, especially someone who has the background as yourself. You're not just a random collegiate athlete. You were the president, and you really know what you're talking about. So even if you don't agree, it's fine. I just want to know your opinion because I am not, nor was I ever a college athlete. So I don't understand like you said, I have practice for 3 hours a day and then I'm missing Monday and Tuesday classes. So please, I'd love to hear your opinion.
So I think as far as sponsorships go, I honestly don't see a problem with it.
Sponsorship meaning?
Well, just sponsorships from like companies, basically.
Oh, okay.
So like all these athletes now are allowed to take, endorsement deals. Some do whatever. It's like the Barstool athlete.
Right.
Others receive bigger endorsements. I don't necessarily see a problem with that. And we talked about this a lot at the SAC meeting that I went to. And some people said that it would obviously put the little conferences at a disadvantage because obviously your bigger conferences are getting higher sponsorships and for their players. But I mean, that's inevitable. I mean, of course, your players like Zion Williamson are going to get hefty endorsement deals compared to a golfer at Presbyterian College,
I would imagine probably not. But still, you're going to get something. There's going to be someone who's going to say, hey, Serena, wear my Nike or wear my whatever, if you can, of course, because you don't want to do anything against whatever it is that you're allowed to do to lose. Like you don't want to lose your scholarship, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you don't want to do anything that's against it. But on the other hand, you were fortunate. You have 2 wonderful, caring, loving parents, and they want to give you the best and help you out whenever and necessary. But God forbid someone's parents didn't have the money and this was their only opportunity and somebody's going to help them. But, like you said, Zion is getting big dollars and Serena Combs, maybe not so much. But if someone was willing to offer you, like, let's say, let's go like Callaway, because you're obviously a golfer. So if Callaway wanted to sponsor you, would you feel okay with that?
I would, yeah. Um, I'm also for it just because, a lot of athletes, especially your more high profile ones, let's say they have an injury or something, and now, you had a legitimate chance on going to the pros, and now you don't. At least you were able to get something.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes. Yeah.
But there is some arguments kind of on like schools paying athletes, the schools themselves.
Right.
That I disagree with because to me, my scholarship is me getting paid. I mean, at the end of the day, education to me was the most important thing. And PC, let me
Right.
play golf and get an education with the scholarship that they gave me. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And
So,
can I ask, do you know how much PC is a year? How much does it cost to go there?
yeah, PC is a private school. It's like $56,000 a year.
So they gave you roughly over $220,000 to play golf there.
Well, it wasn't a full scholarship.
Oh,
I probably paid maybe 7,000 a year,
but
but I
still,
mean, still pretty hefty.
yeah, it's about 200 grand. So
Right.
they are giving you almost $50,000, which is incredible. And so again, I agree with you there. And I've always agreed with the fact of, yes, you're getting an education, but I love the point that you made about what happens if someone gets a debilitating injury, or what happens if you just digress and you were the stud in high school and you were great as a freshman and you just don't make it to the pro level, or like you said, you get hurt. There's so many different reasons of what could happen. It's just because you're on that path doesn't mean you're destined for that to happen. Or
Right.
for whatever reason, let's just take football. Like, for whatever reason, it's just not the linebacker year. They don't need linebackers, and you don't have a
Right.
job. So, yeah. So it's a tough decision. I agree with you on the sponsorship, and I never really thought about the schools actually paying. But how about this though? Doesn't the school, like, obviously, let's go back to Zion, doesn't the school make tens, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars off of that person because
Yeah.
of what they're doing? Because everyone wants to wear his jersey. Everyone wants to whatever with whatever it is that he's doing. So but a lot of people argue, well, they are getting the education. But from
Right.
you, I can ask you again, do you off the top of your head remember or know numbers of the graduation rates in general of collegiate athletes? Or is it a higher percentage, or it depends on the college?
I'm not so sure about graduation rates, but I do know uh, like GPA wise, student athlete to regular student, comparing them, student athletes at PC had a higher GPA than regular students.
I hear that a lot, that
Yes.
at most colleges, you can't say everyone because nothing's 100%, but at
Right.
most colleges. Well, can you explain to me your PC experience, why you believe that?
Your really big schools, I mean, they put in a lot of time with tutors and such. I know a lot of these schools have like private tutors just for like football players, and PC they didn't really have a lot of that, but I feel like coaches really emphasize, I mean, having good grades, and they're always checking in on you, making sure, like, hey, progress reports come out. They're like, what's going on in this class and such.
On top of you to make sure that your grades are where they should be.
Right.
Not that that was ever really a problem for you. You were always a very good student, and it was something
Yeah.
that was important to you. But still, it's nice to know that someone is kind of giving you the nudge, nudge, and being the parental influence because your parents aren't there, and that they
Right.
care. It's kind of funny that you talk about big schools and tutors. It made me remember one of my wife's friends. She was a tutor when, where was it? Tennessee? Where did, I'm just totally drawing a blank. The football family. The dad played for New Orleans. The brother played for the Giants, and the Mannings. Ole Miss. Did Peyton Manning didn't go to
Peyton? No. Eli
Tennessee?
Went to Ole Miss. He went to Tennessee. Yeah.
Right. I was right with Tennessee. Okay, so let's try this again. So Peyton Manning went to Tennessee, and my wife's friend Jen was his tutor because she got a job tutoring at math, I believe, and she was tutoring. And I'll never forget, we went over to her house once after college was over, and all of a sudden, there's Peyton Manning on TV playing football, and she's not really into football. It was just on because it was Sunday. And she's like, oh, Peyton, I know him. And I'm like, what? How do you know him? She goes, oh, I used to tutor him in math back in Tennessee. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
And
that's
this is the
crazy.
whole point. Like, you never know who's what or who's connected to whom or what can happen. So that's pretty amazing. So when you were in high school,
Hmm.
you didn't know necessarily that you were going to go to PC as a school, but you knew that Division I golf was probably on the table, right? You knew that was going to happen.
Yes.
So in order for that to happen, you still had to have decent to good grades to go to these Division I schools, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would you say was the foundation that Serena had to lay in order to go from, starting out playing golf in 6th grade to playing golf on the high school team to being a county success to getting a scholarship at a Division I school, going and now graduating and then attending law school at University of Florida, which we'll get into in a little while. It just keeps continuing. It's unbelievable. So what was your preparation for that? Like, what did you do to say, all right, this is the goal I want to achieve. I have to do all this stuff.
So, I guess the biggest thing that helped prepare me the most was taking AP classes and dual enrollment classes.
Can I ask you, how many AP classes did you take?
I don't know off the top of my head. Probably, eight, maybe.
Gotcha.
Something like that. The problem was, and this is a whole nother rant for a whole nother day, but I think most Palm Beach County high schools are now going towards that ACE program. Is
Yes.
that what? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Well, yeah, ACE is great, I guess, if you're going to an in-state school, but if you're going out of state like I did, you don't get any of those credits.
I tried to explain that to the kids. I always say that. I said, ACE is great if you're going to use the prepaid or you're going to
Mm-hmm.
use anything that's Florida. This is it. If not,
Right.
Florida's the only one that takes it. So
Yep.
you have to take APs in order to. So, so you took a lot of AP classes in order to prepare you for this next step, this next journey. And how well did you feel that you were prepared? Like, did you get to college and you felt like, the Hulk was standing on you, or were you standing on the Hulk?
No, I'm going to be honest with you. You sit in high school classes a lot in your APs, and, teachers are like, when you get to college, this is going to be so much harder. And I honestly, I it's not that it's easy because it's not, but there's just so many resources out there that you can really flourish. Like, when you're home in high school, you have your parents around and everything, but when you're in college, you're just kind of, you can pretty much do work all the time. I mean, I would never do work past like 7 o'clock in high school, but now I get to college, I'm studying more. But I honestly, I mean, it was a pretty easy transition.
Well,
I didn't ever feel it was tough, if that makes sense.
No, not at all. Where do you think those tools were acquired? And was there a specific class, maybe even a teacher, somebody who truly made that difference for you, where you were like, all right, I really like this. This is the light bulb moment, the aha, like, wow.
Well, it also, it's when you're in high school, you are taking pretty much like classes that they tell you to take, obviously.
Right.
So I went for, I mean, I was always a good student, but there was never really something that I was like, wow, this is awesome, until I was in 11th grade and I took an AP US history class. And the teacher himself, honestly, he wasn't the best, but the information was what I found most interesting. And I always wanted to come home and like I always, just read my textbook because I thought it was interesting. So when you go to college and I had so many credits for my AP classes that I didn't have to take a lot of these gen eds, that I could really start into my major courses, which
Yeah,
I double
just
majored in
springboard
history.
right into it. You
Right.
didn't have to take, well, gen ed classes are basically for the kids. That you're basically retaking English, math, science, and social
Mm-hmm.
studies. And by taking the AP classes, it's almost like a CLEP, which basically says you already took it. You don't have to take it again. If you
Right.
score, did your school require 4s or 5s? Do you remember?
It was fours or
Okay.
fives.
Okay,
Yep.
yes, 4s or 5s. Because I know the Ivies now are 5s across the board. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
and a lot of schools take threes too, but PC unfortunately didn't, so it was just
No,
fours and
wow.
fives.
Yeah, some
Um,
do. Some that's true. 3 is passing, and then
right.
4 is usually that what they're looking for. But some do take 3s, and now, like I said, some take 5. Wow.
Yeah.
So, no, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that. So now I took all those. I didn't have to take any of those classes that didn't really interest me. So now I could go right into my, history classes. I could take my politics classes, and so it was easy for me to study because I enjoyed it so much.
What did you actually graduate with? What is your degree?
So I guess it's a Bachelor of Arts in History and Political Science.
Wow, you basically are a combination of my wife and myself. I
Oh
have
yeah?
I have the history, she's the poli sci, she's the politics major. Yeah, it's
Yep.
really funny. And then
Uh-huh.
to make matters crazier, when we first moved to Florida, she got a job teaching US history and I got a job teaching civics. And both of us were like, can you do my lesson plans? Because I don't know what it is I'm supposed to be doing.
That's
So
funny.
it
Yep.
really is. That's amazing. You're definitely like 6 or 7 kids that I know of that have done that. That's incredible. I'm
Hmm.
so glad. And
Yeah,
that's
well,
up. No, go ahead.
no, sorry. I was just going to say that I originally was going. So when I started college, I wanted to get actually my PhD in history and become a professor.
Wow.
And my sister Taylor, she was talking to me and she said, she said, because you're taking history, so she said you might as well just do political science too. And at that point, I honestly didn't really know what political science was, and I said,
Right.
all right, whatever. I'll
Throw
double
it in
major in
there.
it, whatever.
So
Um,
wait, was this a dual major or a major and a minor?
no, this is two majors.
Oh my God. So you're a professional athlete and you're doing dual majors. Wow, boy, you're just,
Yes.
I don't know how you make it through the day.
But I
That's
so
incredible.
much enjoyed my political science classes to my history classes, believe it or not.
Yes. No, I
So
could totally, I could
I
totally
guess I
understand
have
that.
Taylor to thank
To
for
thank for
that.
that. That's
For
really,
yeah,
hey, look, big sister pays off. Who knew?
yeah,
The
yeah,
girl,
yeah.
the
I
girl who's
know.
actually earning her PhD right now.
Yes,
Or,
yes.
or maybe she was just trying to dissuade you from the PhD so she could be the first and she could be like, ha, I got mine. Now what are you going to do,
Yeah,
little sister? And you're like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to become a lawyer and I can get a PhD in that too. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so
That's
funny.
funny.
What's that called? I always forget.
JD, your Juris
JD.
Doctorate. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. So
Hmm.
now we're getting the fact that you're a pretty smart cookie. First and foremost, did you have any educational like challenges? Was there anything for you that really stood out where you were like you said, you fell in love with history, but how did you then muddle through like science and math if those weren't your things?
Yeah. So I only got two B's ever at PC.
2 B's
Two B's. One was
in
in
4 years? Oh my
yeah,
God.
but both were my freshman year.
Okay, that's
So
understandable. You're just
the
getting
f-
acclimated.
right, and freshman year is always the hardest just because you don't really know what professors expect of you. But PC, because it's Presbyterian College, they make you take Old Testament and New Testament courses.
Right, right.
So I got a B in Old Testament.
Oh
I
man,
know.
Jesus was not happy with you.
He really wasn't, no. And then I got a B in physics because
Oh,
me and sciences do not get along. That's my sister's realm, Taylor's
that's
realm, but
that's
this
Taylor. Yes,
is this
Tay
is where
Tay
we
is
are
all about the
complete.
science. But I
Yes.
hate to have to tell you, social studies people, science is not our thing. It science and math.
No,
It's not. What's
no.
weird though is physics was the only science that made sense to me. I got an A in physics, and everything else was like I was torturing myself. But physics just
See,
actually made sense because you could do because I had to take physics with a lab. Did you have to do that?
I did, yeah.
And the
Hmm.
lab is what all of a sudden made it all make sense because I'm a hands-on kind of person. And
Right.
when I see it happening, I'm like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense now. Now I understand all this gobbledygook that I just read in this book 42 times and I didn't understand. Now I'm doing an experiment and it makes perfect sense.
Right.
So that's why physics made sense. But biology, when you had to do, what is it? Meiosis, mitosis, and cell
Oh my
division on one test, I
gosh.
was like, you can just throw that in
Yes.
the trash. No.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah.
seemingly how you're having this unbelievably like enriched academic life and you were obviously so how often were you playing golf in high school? Obviously not to PC level, but still.
No, I mean, I still, though, in high school was probably going 5 to 6 days a week, no doubt. Um, but for probably only like an hour and a half to 2 hours a day.
Wow. Did you have
Yeah.
like a coach, a trainer, what is it? The what's the psychologist or like a mind person to
Yeah,
help you?
sports psychologist.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
I didn't have a sports psychologist, although I probably would have benefited from one.
I think we all could.
Yes, but I did have just a regular, coach that I would go to weekly for lessons and all, and then had tournaments and all that jazz. So,
And when you played in high school, because you did get a Division I scholarship, when you played in high school, were you like, how highly ranked were you on your team in high school? I don't remember. It's been a while.
so I mean, Park Vista, I was one just because there's not really, I guess, much competition. I don't know that, not to be rude, but
No, you
um,
obviously earned it. You didn't just walk on there because that's not who you are and like, yeah, this is mine.
right. But on like through even like my junior tours that I would go on, I honestly was probably middle tier. I didn't really stand out, but I also wasn't the worst, I just
Okay,
kind of skated by.
right.
Um, but I feel something just like a transition or something just kind of switched when I went up there and I started playing so much better. So I don't know how that happened, but I guess I'm thankful for it. So
Definitely. We always want to be thankful for playing better because golf is that
yes,
game where just one day you're like, wait, I actually knew how to play this yesterday. What happened today?
right, exactly.
And
Yep,
people don't understand that unless they play it.
yep.
So when you're spending hours studying, hours golfing, when was Serena time? When was there me time? When was there like, all right, all this stuff just gets pushed to the side because I need to, what is it that you did?
I mean, to some extent, though, golf was kind of my me time because it was, well, in college and high school, 2 to 3 hours a day out of, just the chaos of studying and such. So it was just kind of like a peaceful time, I guess.
A lot of people don't understand that. Like
Yeah, they
people ask me
don't.
that all the time. They're like, why do you play golf? And I'm like, because it's fun. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but you're not Tiger Woods. I'm like, yeah, because Tiger Woods is Tiger Woods. That's why I'm Jeremy Proper. Like
Right.
I go out there to play golf because it's fun. And I actually last time I played, I was talking to my friend and like here in South Florida, I forget how lucky we are where you go out on the course. I don't know if you remember playing the Boca Muni 9.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
we'd
Yep.
see alligators, we'd see Canadian geese, we'd see
Uh-huh.
Egyptian geese, we'd see owls, we'd see foxes, we'd see like it was like a zoo. We got to see all kinds of stuff and chase around a little white ball to irritate yourself. And
Uh-huh.
what I try to explain to people, and I want to know if you agree with me, the way I play golf is I want to play where I'm beating myself, knowing that I did better than I played this course or the way I played last time. And then I'm trying to see if I can be better than the competition. What is your take on playing golf?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's exactly right. A lot of the time, I just try to even when I'm in a tournament, it's really me against the golf course. Yeah, that I'm playing with other people against other people, but at the same time, it's just me out there. So I try to just have like a good mindset. I try not to get too frustrated because I mean, it is such a tough game and people don't really understand it unless they go out and play it, how just mentally draining it honestly is sometimes.
Um,
Hmm.
so what was your challenging uh, educational? Did you go over that?
No, so okay, so through SAC, I guess backstory first, and listening to like all the legislation and everything, I realized how cool that is and how it's crazy how just one thing can really, this legislation can have just a major impact. And so it was from that I started to kind of, sway the thought of law school.
Mm.
So it wasn't until it had to have been early February, my junior year, that I went to one of my professors, who is the pre law advisor, and I sat down in her office for 2 hours.
Wow.
just kind of discussing. Yeah, I mean, she is a saint for sitting there for 2
That's a
hours
lot of
with
time
me.
to get from an
Yeah.
advisor. That's amazing. I mean, these kids don't understand that they don't have this kind of time.
Yes, yeah. And she sat down with me and just kind of went over some pros and cons. And it was from that I said, yes, like this is something that I want to do. Well, when I decided that, my immediate next step is studying for the LSAT, the,
Right.
law school admissions test. I felt so behind because, a lot of kids that decide to go to law school already know so far in advance that that's what they want to do.
They
So,
went pre-law as their undergrad. Exactly.
right. And they've
But
been
history is
studying for
huge for
so
that.
long.
But
And it
history is
is,
huge for that.
yes.
You were not
Yes.
as behind as they would say the 8 ball as
Right.
your general ed studies major who
Yes.
decides that they want
Yes.
to do law school. Like
Yeah.
you already had a leg up where you're like, all right, I took a lot of history and that will help.
Right. But the
Because
law,
I
sorry,
was going to say it's a lot of research is law, is trying to research cases and figure out
yes.
how it relates to your client and how your client is similar to this particular case.
Yep, a lot of reading.
A lot of reading.
But the LSAT, it's interesting. So it's 3 different sections. One of them is reading comprehension. Another one is you have a paragraph and it'll ask you what's the strength of this argument? What's the weakness of this argument? Different things like that related to arguments.
Okay.
And then the last section is it's like games. So it's like if I bought 3 apples and I gave one away, just little things like that.
Right.
So it was February that I had to sit down and I registered to take the July LSAT. So I had to,
This July, like you just took it
well, no, this would have been
last year.
last year. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
had,
I'm just trying to keep the timeline correct.
Yeah. So I had a few months to prepare. I guess in a way, COVID helped me because I was able to come home
You
and
were
take
stuck at
online
home. Yeah.
classes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I had nothing else to do but study. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you that for a solid 3.5 months, I studied for that stupid test for, I would say, 2 to 4 hours a day easily.
Wow. It's funny
Yeah.
because I had another person that did the podcast and they told me that they realized they wanted to go to a quality school and they knew in order to do that, they had to start studying for the SATs and they did it in 9th grade and all they did was study 15 or 20 minutes a day, but they did it 9th, 10th, 11th until they took it and they were all
Right.
ready to, go and do it. They did phenomenal on it, but they studied for
Yep.
3 years. Whereas you're kind of the opposite. You were like,
Yes.
oh, I want to do this and I have this small window to make sure it happens. And as you and I know, and you can tell the listeners, how did that work out for you?
Well, it worked out really well. I remember, so I took the test and I was very unsure of how it went. And because of COVID, usually you have to go in person to take it, but I could take it at least from the comfort of my own home, which was nice.
That is nice.
But I still just didn't really know how it went. And so I remember scores were released at 9 a.m. on a certain date. And my mom she stayed home a little bit later in the morning to be able to, hear what I got. And I told her, I just said, Mom, I said, just wait downstairs, just let me soak it in first because I don't know how I'm going to react. And I remember I opened up my phone. It was like 9 a.m. I got my score and I physically could not believe it. I mean, it was probably one of the happiest days of my life.
That's incredible.
I scored in the 78th percentile.
Wow.
And it was a score that I really had never even gotten in practice tests,
So it blew that away too. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was funny because my mom always jokes, I was looking at other schools, that take a lower LSAT, like LSU, for example.
Because you're like, I don't want to push it.
Yes.
I don't know how well I did. I want to go to law school, but come on.
Yeah. And so I remember I was sitting on the steps and I told my mom, I said, I don't have to go to LSU. And she
LSU. Oh my
yeah,
God,
she
that's
always
so
thinks
funny.
that's so funny. But yeah, and so I
Wow.
got my score and started applying to schools, which is a beast in and of itself.
I could only imagine. Now, I'm totally unfamiliar. So just like college, are there fees associated with applying to each school?
Oh yeah. So Every application goes through the LSAC, which they make the LSAT test. And so you have to make, it's like $200 to create an account with them. And then like a $200 fee to create, like basically put all your information into one thing that gets sent to the schools. And then you have application fees on top of that from each individual school.
Wow.
So a lot of schools will email you and they'll be like, hey, we waived your application fee,
Nice.
which is great. But then you still have the LSAC fee that you have to pay on top of that.
Wow.
So it is pretty costly, but I ended up applying to, I think I applied to 14 different schools
Oh
just
my.
because I didn't know what law schools wanted. And I just was kind of unsure about the whole process just because I felt like I started so late.
Right, right. This wasn't
Um,
something that you prepared for the last 4 years. This was kind of like,
right,
I want to do this now.
right. And
And it just kind of worked out.
right. And then I remember I got accepted pretty early on to George Washington in
Ooh, nice.
Washington.
Washington, D.C. Yeah, very good school.
Right. And they're like in the top 25 in the nation. So from that, then I applied to a few more higher up ones, you know.
Oh, okay. So once you got into that, you were like, hey, well, let's see what else I can do here.
Right. But then ultimately decided to go to University of Florida. So I leave in less than a week and a half to go
That-
there.
That's
So
incredible. That is just incredible. I mean, hard work pays off. It
Yes.
really does. And that kind of leads us to the quote that I had asked you to discuss.
yes. So the quote that I just kind of goes along with everything in my life, I feel like, is that everything happens for a reason. So I feel like you can't, if you're going through something, you can't ever, you know, you can, I, I don't know how to word this basically, but I don't really have any regrets, basically.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to say.
that's
So
it.
I
You know,
feel like everything that has happened in my life has
This
put
is-
me to where I am today.
this is the path that Serena is supposed to be on. This is the
Right.
path that you're supposed to go to, and you're doing it. And
Mhm.
even though, like, we're sitting here laughing about it, but this is the path. Even though you decided last minute, basically, to do law, it worked itself out. It happened.
Right.
Well, let's be honest. You made it happen. You did it. Your hard work, your effort. But again, it wasn't just like, this is Serena, the college whiz kid. You know, you had golf. You obviously had to have a personal life. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, study, sleep, golf,
Right.
study, sleep. You know, you
No,
have
yeah.
to wind it all together. And again, like you said, you're just kind of letting it happen, and it did. So
Mhm.
if there's anything that you learned about Don Estridge after you left, is there anything that all of a sudden you went to high school or even college and you're like, wow, I learned that in middle school and just didn't realize?
I feel like Don Estridge really just prepared me so well. I feel like, especially even when I went to high school, I have friends that went to, you know, other middle schools, and I felt like they just really weren't as prepared as I was. And I have, I kind of just had to take a step back and think that, well, obviously, you know, this is a result of me going to Don Estridge, you know? I mean, I feel like the teachers there just really help students a lot and help want to see them succeed, where I saw maybe other friends that went to different middle schools didn't have that.
And then when you went to high school, did that diminish?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Gotcha. So, yeah, it's interesting because when you're there, you're not seeing the whole picture. You're just seeing, like,
Right.
I always say this sentence, reality is what you're used to. So,
Uh-huh.
you know, Serena's reality is she sat down for 3 hours a day for how many months did you say it was? 3?
Yeah.
3 months and kicked some serious bootay on the LSATs and now is going to the University of Florida. And I'm sorry, did we leave out on a scholarship?
Yes.
We left that out. Yes, of course we did. So Serena is just on the world of scholarship, whether it be academics or athletics. Ding, 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 bullseye every time. So that's what's so amazing is your hard work and your perseverance. This wouldn't just happen because, like, your average person, even in a pandemic time, wouldn't put in that kind of time and effort to do what you
Right.
did and then ultimately achieve what you did. So it's commended. You did a wonderful job, and you deserve all the accolades and everything that goes with it. And again, that's the whole point of the podcast, is to show people hard work pays off.
Yes.
You may not
Well,
see it
thank
today.
you.
You may not see it tomorrow, but this young lady shows it every single day. And it's amazing. And that's why I wanted her to come on and talk about it, because when you put in the effort, it's gonna show. But again, it might not be today. And that we're such a, what is that culture where we want things like right now?
Yeah, we're result oriented. Or is that what it's called?
Yes,
maybe?
result oriented and just immediacy. We want the positivity to happen immediately, not realizing that some things, and especially the big things, are over time, that it's a time lapse, that it's this leads to this, leads to this. And going back to your quote, everything happens for a reason. Well, your reasons are, I did this, this, and this to get me to where I am now. And as you pointed out, you were just going along, going, okay, I'm here with my double major of history and political science, and that's cool. And then all of a sudden it was law. And then it's, here's a new direction. And I want to go over there. And in typical Serena fashion, you did it because that's who you are. You persevere. But that's life. Nobody's handed anything. You have to work for it. I mean, unless, of course, your dad's a billionaire, but I don't know any of those.
Nope.
So, I mean, maybe if you went to school across the street at Lynn University, you probably know a couple of billionaires then. But anyway,
True.
I digress. The thing is that it's just hard work, and the hard work never stops, because she just spent 3 months of her life studying for a test, getting into law school, and that's just to get into school, to do more school.
Yes.
How long is the law program?
It's 3 years.
3 years. Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yep.
I was like, is it 3? Is it 4? So that's so exciting. Well,
Yes. Well, thank you.
It's just unbelievable, the achievements of these, as I still call them, kids, but now they're adults. I mean, you're 22 years old. You're not a kid anymore, but still. So as I end the podcast, as I do every single time, I have to throw out there, because it's been a long time since you were at the Don. Do you remember who Don Estridge actually was?
So wasn't he was an engineer that helped develop the first PC, right?
That's exactly correct. And
Because Don Estridge is in the former IBM building, right?
You answered my bonus question without me even
sorry.
asking. No, it's awesome. I'm glad that you knew the answer. It's amazing. I love it when people do that. That's fantastic. No, don't apologize, please. Don't apologize for being smart. That's the last thing you should ever do. So, yes, that's exactly right. Don Estridge was supposed to be the secret facility in Boca Raton where the personal computer was invented by one and only Don Estridge. That is amazing. Well, Serena, I greatly appreciate you coming on my podcast and telling your story and telling everyone about your wonderful accomplishments and the continuation of your wonderful accomplishments. But as we've stated, it all goes with hard work.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you for listening to How I Got Here podcast with Mr. Proper. Music provided by Miss Mata. Thank you to Patty Fernandez for the introduction. Thank you to Seth Proper for logistics and behind-the-scenes production. Join us next time for another episode of How I Got Here and more stories of former students and their journey.